Okay, everyone. I had an interesting email from one of the Storyteller Tactics customers, and she was saying, "Look, I'm not a salesman or a saleswoman. I don't do corporate stuff. I don't have an HR problem. I'm not selling a product or a service. I work in a church, and I bought Storyteller Tactics because I wanted help with getting my message across when I'm speaking to my audience. So, is it okay? Is it a tool that you can use if you're not in the corporate world?" Well, the interesting thing about Storyteller Tactics, on the box it says, "Ditch dull presentations, tell great stories." And it's kind of geared up. Yes, it is geared up. It's a business tool. So it is geared up to people in the corporate world. But I strongly believe there's a lot in there for you, whether you're working in a charity or a non-profit or a university or a church. Wherever you are, where you need people to see things your way and do things your way, then a story's going to help you. So I just want to walk through the deck for that customer, but for anybody else as well who's thinking the same of, well, is this all just a corporate sales tool? And to say, well, no, it's more than that. So the first thing when you open the cards are you get your sort of opening cards, and then you get some story recipes, which are like collections of cards you can use for particular problems. And the first one is stories that sell. So obviously it's a very salesman-y type of set of stories. But anyway, go through the recipes if you like, or here's what I'm going to suggest is you start with the first category of cards. The first category of cards have a kind of red edge to them. We call them concept cards because they're basically a way of seeing the world and understanding the world as if it's revealed to us through the stories we tell and the stories we hear. So these are, if you like, the stories behind what you're doing, the stories behind how you think. And I think these are the ones that really do apply way outside the business world because they come from life. So the first one, I'm just going to go through some. First one is called The Dragon and the City. And The Dragon and the City is the idea that basically wherever you are in life, you're in this kind of status quo place, the city. And all around you, there are unknown and possibly threatening, possibly exciting things going on. And your job from within the city is to think, well, okay, do I keep away from those things because they might be dangerous? Do I prepare for them, or do I go out and look for them? So it's a kind of three possible responses to the unknown. Now that applies in business. We all experienced a dragon with the pandemic, for example. We all had to adjust the way we worked, but it also applies in life. So the dragon could be that party you're not sure whether you want to go to or not because it might be awkward, or it might be something in the family that nobody's talking about that we need to talk about. So all of these things are they're also stories. So coming back to the idea of the church, well, it could be the activity, the thing you should be preparing for in life. Maybe that's the dragon. And the tactics you're going to use to face that dragon, well, they're going to be based in a kind of religious sensibility. There's a religious sensibility behind the order and chaos card as well. And it's a Taoist idea that the world is divided like yin and yang into order and chaos. Now, you can also look at other religious traditions who have a similar kind of view. In the Genesis story, the world is chaotic, the universe is chaotic, and God brings order to it. So there are other. This has I think, a kind of religious perspective built into it. In this card, order and chaos, well, the world is either in order or in chaos, and your job in the world is to navigate between those two states and to think, well, in life, in business, in my church, wherever, I'm either trying to take a situation that's just too chaotic and impose some order on it, or I'm facing a situation that's just too rigid, too tight, and I'm trying to shake it up, bring a bit of chaos into it. Again, that applies in business, it applies in a church, it applies in life. Here's another interesting card around the dragon and the city, the idea of there being conflict inherent in story. It's called Three Great conflicts. Now, essentially, when we think about the dragons we face in life, well, those dragons come from one of three places. They either come from, let's say, nature, acts of God, things that are accidental, things we can't control, things that are nobody's fault. You could say the pandemic is one of those. A hurricane is one of those. So that's where we get one dragon that comes after us from things that nobody can control. Another source of dragons and conflicts is other people. Yeah, the way other people behave is a constant source of conflict. And the final area where dragons come from is our own stupid self. So they come from our own weakness, our own reluctance, our own laziness, whatever it is. Those are the three areas where conflicts arise: in nature, in other people, in ourselves. Now, again, that is a useful perspective if you're in business, trying to get yourself or your team to do something. But it's also a useful perspective, I think, in talking to a congregation or a community, that the threats they face come from three places in every story, as in life. Okay, other cards. We're going to go through a bit more quickly now. There's a card called Good and Evil. Clearly, it's about moral conflict. And on the back of the card, it identifies 6 basic moral conflicts that we could all find, again, in work or in life or in your church community or the work you're trying to do. Okay. So the other concept cards, there's Rules, Cheats and Rebels, Secrets and Puzzles, Curious Tales. All of these are actually about the kind of underlying features of real life as we experience it that come up again and again and again in the stories that we love. And so what these cards encourage you to do is think, okay, well, where's my version? The work that I'm trying to do, the idea I'm trying to get across, if I take Rules, Cheats and Rebels, am I trying to get people to do something that's unconventional, that goes against the rules? And are we doing it because we're cheating, or are we doing it because we're rebelling? We're trying to do something new and better. So all of these actually act, these concept cards, these red, and there's about 8 or 9 of them, these red-edged cards are, I think, a really, really good place to start if you're not in that kind of corporate selling mode, but if you're thinking about, the mission, the why am I doing this, and how do I get people to see things my way? Now, within the deck, there are lots of other cards that are going to help you. I think it's also really important that you consider yourself as a character in your own story. And there are some yellow-edged cards in the deck called character cards, which are exactly that, which is, okay, when you're telling a story, you are a character in the story. And we read you. We read things about you from the way you behave, from the things you say. So it's worth thinking about. So just to give you 2 examples from these cards, Trust Me, I'm an Expert is really about the things you do as well as the things you say you do, because we pay very close attention to what you do. Another very useful one, I think, for someone leading a spiritual community is the idea of the hero and guide, and this idea that this is not about you. Even if you're in a leadership position, it's not about you. It's about the people you're trying to help. And it suggests here in this card, well, there are 6 different kind of, well, look, if you imagine the illustration, you can see it's meant to be kind of Luke Skywalker and being guided by Yoda. Well, Luke is the hero. That's the person you're trying to help, and you're the guide. And on the back of the card, it says, well, there are at least 6 different kinds of guide you can be, you can model yourself on. And so the card talks you through that, and that will give you a way of seeing how you can talk about yourself, which is really important. And just going one last section of cards to look at are the blue-edged cards. There are probably more of these than any others in the deck, which are structure cards. Now, some of these structure cards, well, rags to riches is a very common one that's used in advertising. So yeah, clearly that's got a kind of corporate sales pitch. But there are structures here which are very old. So the obvious one is Pride and Fall. Now, this story, the illustration there is meant to be the Icarus story, which is basically the story arc goes like this, which is, hey, look, we can fly. Ah, right. That didn't work. And so the Pride and Fall story arc, if you can see that, is a kind of rise and then fall. Okay, but that's a very, very old story in a way. That's the story of human pride, the original sin. So it's the expulsion from the Garden of Eden. It's the Tower of Babel. It's a very, very old story, and it still gets retold again and again and again. Jurassic Park, Titanic. These are all pride and fall stories that we watch and love in the modern world. So that's a very old story. So too is the idea behind the story arc No Easy Way. The simple idea behind that story structure is that nothing good is easy, because if it was easy, we would have done it already. Now, this applies to a business telling a story about themselves, but it equally applies to anyone in the world trying to do a good thing. It's not going to be easy, because if it was easy, you'd already be doing it. So, clearly there are cards in here, like Pitch Perfect, which are written very much for people who have to pitch ideas in a business setting. But I would say, take a look at them as well. Because if you're pitching an idea to a community, we should do this as a community, we should support this idea, we should support these people, we should raise money for this project. It's kind of a sales pitch. So even the story cards like Pitch Perfect and simple sales stories, even these cards that look really commercial, well, take a look at them and think, okay, I am selling here. I'm selling myself as a character. I'm selling my ideas. I want you to not just listen to me. I want you to act. Okay, so I hope you find that useful. And don't forget, there's always with Storyteller Tactics, there is the Slack channel where anybody can come on and ask any questions they like, including the question that this customer asked about, look, I'm not a salesman. Can I still use Storyteller Tactics? And I hope you agree that the answer is yes, you can.